Gentlemen and ladies, Her Royal Majesty, Princess Irulan Origins.
The excitement around Dune is real, and we're back with another Dune character exploration video. On this channel, we've dissected many of the most important players in the Imperium, including Paul Atreides, Alia Atreides, and even Count Hasimir Fenring. Today's video is all about Princess Irulan, the narrator, wife to Paul Atreides, and daughter of Emperor Shaddam IV. A woman of impeccable beauty and grace, Princess Irulan is quite the pivotal female character in the series, even though she shows up a little late to the action. Intrigued? Keep watching our video to learn all we know about this daughter of House Corrino. Before we get into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
I think we both know the way out of this difficulty, don't we?
Exploring the early life of Princess Irulan. Princess Irulan, the eldest of Emperor Shaddam's 5 daughters, was brought up in the imperial court under extremely privileged circumstances. She was trained for royal service since she was a young child and also obtained a top-notch education from the Bene Gesserit order. Irulan was raised to be a lady of elegance and style like her 4 younger sisters, Chalice, Wencesia, Josepha, and Rugi. Irulan's mother was a member of the Bene Gesserit, and she had been instructed to bear only daughters to Emperor Shaddam IV as part of their breeding program and political machinations. Thus, she only had sisters. On top of that, being the eldest, she bore on her shoulders the weight of being the one to carry on the name of House Corrino and ensure that her bloodline was still in a position of power in the Imperium. Due to this, Irulan's father, Shaddam IV, intended for her to marry a political ally, or at the very least, become empress after his death, in order to maintain House Corrino's rule over the Imperium, and she was trained for this from an early age. The Bene Gesserit also recognized the young girl's potential and provided her with the necessary training so that, should she ever find herself in a position of power, they might take advantage of her. They wanted to indoctrinate her into the Bene Gesserit order and use her as a political pawn to further their breeding program. Considering the fact that she was the Emperor's daughter, she was bound to marry someone influential, and the Bene Gesserit loved exerting their influence on the wealthy and powerful. Irulan, however, remained just an ordinary Bene Gesserit sister. In fact, she never even became a reverend mother, even though she was destined to do so. Irulan was too proud to make any progress in her Bene Gesserit training. Lady Jessica speculated this in the books, and the sisterhood never raised the issue because, even with the Bene Gesserit powers, Irulan would primarily serve as Shaddam's daughter, a political tool and, at best, the bearer of the Muad'Dib. However, she still had a strong sense of self and sharp ambition, qualities that produced conflict between her and her equally determined father. Her ambition was always clear, and even though she was usually in roles that put her behind the scenes, her presence was always felt. She was somewhat of a misfit and somewhat of a rebel, but more on that later. What got her into an unhappy marriage? The political conflict explored. Being the daughter of the Emperor, it doesn't come as a surprise that she got embroiled in the politics taking place in the Imperium. There always existed the underlying expectation that Irulan would marry someone at the behest of her father, and for political or financial gain. Thus, Irulan was progressively lured into the Iraqian events as her father planned his scheme to use House Harkonnen to overthrow Duke Leto Atreides I and House Atreides. He was incredibly jealous of Duke Leto and worried about his growing power and popularity, and it was this that kickstarted the events of the first book. As Leto's influence and power increased in the Landsraad, there was widespread speculation that Irulan might marry his son Paul to represent Shaddam's choice of House Atreides to peacefully succeed to the imperial throne after his death. However, the Emperor's envy of the Red Duke Leto led him to concoct a plot to assassinate him instead. What could have been a marriage alliance was turned sour thanks to the Emperor's ambitions and insecurity. However, as we already know, marriage is always political in the Imperium, and with Paul out of the picture, at least for the time being, the Emperor proposed to possibly offer Irulan in marriage to the Harkonnen apparent heir, Feyd-Rautha Harkonnen, together with the wealth of the Arrakis fief in order to entice House Harkonnen to cooperate with this arrangement. The cunning and shrewd Baron Vladimir Harkonnen supported this arrangement because he thought a union and scheme like this would be very helpful in establishing a Harkonnen empire. However, this marriage didn't pan out because Princess Irulan did not appreciate being used like a pawn in her father's politics politics and schemes. Despite the marriage not taking place, Emperor Shaddam IV went ahead with his plan to overthrow Duke Leto Atreides. The conspiracy against the House Atreides was carried out when they were led to Arrakis under the pretense of taking over the lucrative melange enterprise there. It seemed like they were being given a position of power and prestige, but in reality, they were surrounded by traitors and schemers. The Harkonnen forces, secretly reinforced by the seemingly unbeatable Imperial Sardaukar, then attacked the Atreides shortly after the family had taken over spice manufacture. Unfortunately, Duke Leto was killed, but Paul and his mother, Lady Jessica, a Bene Gesserit herself, escaped into the desert. They were thought to have died since it was extremely tough to survive in the desert. However, it turned out that they were alive, and that Paul had stepped into the fabled and prophesized role of the Muad'Dib, the Messiah. Arrakis subsequently experienced a crisis when the enigmatic Muad'Dib Paul Atreides became an effective leader of the indigenous Fremen tribes opposing the Harkonnens' rule. Considering that Paul was alive and now in an immensely powerful position, the idea of Princess Irulan marrying Paul was once again on the table. But this time, it was far more urgent because the other houses were rapidly losing power. Irulan also became further embroiled with the Bene Gesserit when they attempted to use her as a snitch against her father, and the enigmatic Muad'Dib emerged as a successful ruler of the Fremen after House Atreides gained successful control of the Arrakeen throne. Irulan was on Arrakis with her father when Paul Atreides eventually succeeded in capturing the Imperial strongholds on Arrakis as well. She then saw Paul vanquish the Harkonnen Baron in a move that effectively ended the Harkonnen family. Paul effectively became the most eligible bachelor, but this wasn't just about looks or love, it always boils down to politics in Dune. At the time, Paul had his concubine by his side, a Fremen woman named Chani. However, to consolidate his power and authority in the Imperium, he decided to take it one step further. To Chani's incredible dismay, Paul forced Irulan to wed him in order to establish his authority and usurp Shaddam IV's hold on the Golden Lion throne. In some ways, Princess Irulan was duped into the marriage because she consented to the union without knowing about Paul's passion for Chani. Paul knew all along that Chani would be the one to give birth to the Imperial heir apparent, and thus, Irulan's ambitions of giving birth to a child with Paul and maintaining House Corrino's control over the known universe were destroyed, all in one swoop. Irulan rapidly learns that Chani, Paul's adored Fremen consort, was the only companion he wanted and the only mother of his children after the consolidation of Paul's power over the Imperium. Irulan was merely Paul's wife in name. She was a glorified consort. Seeing her sad position, she discreetly administered Chani harmful contraception so that she would not bear his heirs out of jealousy and bitterness. However, Irulan was filled with regret when Chani passed away shortly after giving birth to two twins named Leto and Ganima. She committed herself to House Atreides and her two remaining stepchildren as a result of this guilt, and in fact, she was a good parent to them, especially after the seeming passing of Paul Atreides after he wandered into the desert as a blind man. Even Aaliyah, who had never been fond of Irulan and was known to speak her mind ruthlessly, reluctantly acknowledged that Princess Irulan reeked of trustworthiness. It was because of this that she allowed her to take on the role of guardian for Leto and Ganima. Irulan then spent her remaining years researching and recording every event that happened since House Atreides seized power on Arrakis in 10,191 AG, during their formative years and after the ascent of the God Emperor Leto Atreides II. She came into her own when she was writing and recording events, and even though her life didn't go as planned, or not as she would have wanted it, she successfully cemented herself in the history of the Imperium thanks to over 15 published books during her lifetime. What was Princess Irulan like? Being a royal princess, Irulan had everything she could ask for growing up. Thus, it was a given that she would have perfect mannerisms and behavior. However, her beauty was well known across the Imperium. She had a stunning face, was tall and blonde, and had green eyes. It was thought that she was so beautiful that her face was unaffected by tears and was also unreadable. Irulan possessed piercing eyes, reportedly observed Baron Vladimir Harkonnen, and he said that when she looked at him, it felt to him that she looked past and through him. Irulan was also described as a tall blonde goddess who conducted herself with an aristocrat's hauteur in Dune Messiah by the Tleilaxu face dancer Scytale. Her face was, for the lack of a better word, perfect, and held a soft grace and beauty which was only betrayed by her observant Bene Gesserit nature. However, apart from looks, she also had a distinctive personality. Despite being trained in the depths of the Bene Gesserit ways and being predestined to be a reverend mother, Irulan never went through the risky ceremonial spice agony ritual to accomplish this in the entire series. It is said in Dune Messiah that she was well prepared for an endeavor at which she was unsuccessful, an imperfect Bene Gesserit product. She was looked at as a failure by quite a few in the Imperium at this point in her life. In Children of Dune, Lady Jessica wrote of Irulan, saying that she had never been the most skilled intuitive in the Bene Gesserit. Instead, she was prized more for her being a daughter of Shaddam IV than for any other reason, and was also frequently too proud to engage herself in developing her talents. In essence, Princess Irulan could have been a Bene Gesserit Reverend Mother if she wanted to, but she simply did not care enough to do so. How Princess Irulan has been used in Dune adaptations over the years. Princess Irulan's main role in Dune is as a narrator and historian, documenting all the events she lived through and her first-hand insight into the politics and happenings in the Imperium. The fact that several chapters in the novel open with an excerpt from one of Irulan's journals shows how successful she was as a writer, considering that she did not have much political impact or influence on many of the events in the Imperium. She has often been left out of cinematic or on-screen adaptations. Or if her role has been included, it's been cut short or reduced. The first time there was speculation of someone playing Princess Irulan on screen was in Alejandro Jodorowsky's unproduced 1970s Dune film adaptation, which was originally slated to star Amanda Lear as Irulan, but this was cancelled. However, since then, she has made certain appearances, such as in Frank Herbert's Dune miniseries. Dune, 1984. Her first ever on-screen appearance was in the year 1984. Irulan's storytelling role is faithfully recreated in David Lynch's 1984 film. The character introduces the Dune universe through narration, but only makes a brief physical appearance at the beginning and very end of the movie. So, while her role was minimal, it still stayed true to the character and her love for writing. The casting process for the role was also interesting. A schedule difficulty with the movie A Room with a View prevented Helena Bonham Carter from taking the role, according to Virginia Madsen, who ended up playing the role instead. She was hired for Dune and 2 prospective sequels after a mad scramble to recast Carter in a short time, according to Madsen. However, Virginia Madsen does consider this role to be her big break, despite the fact that all she had to do was deliver the opening monologue. She even considered herself as a glorified extra. Frank Herbert's Dune miniseries. Many fans did comment on the fact that Irulan's presence was sorely lacking in the first movie. However, the 2000 miniseries creates a lengthy subplot for Irulan, likely taking all the criticism in a constructive manner. Irulan's role needed to be expanded, according to director John Harrison, because she is, after all, a prominent character in the novel and following books, and has several epigraphs to her name. The character also provided him the chance to showcase a unique viewpoint into House Carino. Harrison also changed Irulan to be more of a love interest and to counterbalance the strangeness of Paul marrying a stranger at the end of the movie, according to actress Julie Cox. Asher Perrin also acknowledged the significance of Irulan as a narrative tool in the miniseries, and dubbed the expansion of Irulan's position in the plot as the wisest change from the novel. As far as the performance goes, Cox received immense positive feedback. Critics said that she was graceful and clever with the part, and made Irulan's own journey every bit as intriguing as Paul's on the other end of the political machine. Irulan, played by Julie Cox, was, without a doubt, a huge highlight. She provided House Carino with a sympathetic viewpoint as her father worked with the Harkonnens to bring down House Atreides. Her role in the story was as follows. She befriended Duke Leto's son Paul while visiting Arrakis to affirm Duke Leto's status in the miniseries. She was smart, and later, when the time came, she quickly understood that her father was the only person who could have potentially assisted the Harkonnens following the attack on the Atreides. Irulan also observed Reverend Mother Mohiam's covert meeting with a member of the Spacing Guild, and became suspicious that something significant was going on. She further traveled to the Harkonnen homeworld of Gedi Prime, and subtly pressured Fade to confirm her suspicions. Irulan also accompanied her father's planning councils as the Fremen insurrection intensified, and contributed with wise and helpful counsel. Towards the end, she also came to recognize and accept her part in Paul Atreides' inevitable ascent to the throne. She willingly became his wife, even though she realized that she would do so just in name. Children of Dune. Cox once again played Irulan's character in Frank Herbert's 2003 sequel, Children of Dune, which follows the storyline from both Dune Messiah and Children of Dune. This series saw her in a far more active role as her rivalry with Chani was brought to light, and later, post both Chani passing away and Paul going to the desert, she also gracefully took on the role of Leto and Ganima's guardian. Her relationship with Paul's sister, Aaliyah, is also explored in this series. Dune is overflowing with complex female characters, and Irulan is definitely one of them. Dune 2 is all set to fix Princess Irulan's piece of the puzzle missing previously. The frenzy surrounding Dune picked up with Denis Villeneuve announcing his intent to create a Dune film trilogy. With Part 1 starring heavy hitters like Timothée Chalamet and Zendaya, the film was well received. However, Princess Irulan was missing from the action. But with the release of Dune Part 2 looming over our heads, one thing is confirmed. There will be various characters in Dune Part 2 who did not appear in Dune Part 1, with the one who will guarantee the Muad'Dib saga is preserved for all time being one of the most notable, Princess Irulan. Casting announcements have confirmed that Florence Pugh will be taking on the role. Knowing her acting history, Pugh as Princess Irulan will definitely leave her mark on Dune's perhaps most complex and important character. Since we last saw Princess Irulan getting ready to do what she does so well, which is writing books set in the Dune universe, it has been 20 years. So it's understandable that fans are excited to see her brought to life on screen after so long. Further, the recent trailers have also stirred up a lot of excitement. Princess Irulan is shown taking notes regarding whether Paul Atreides is still alive on Arrakis in the latest teaser for Dune Part 2. However, interestingly, the two events that will determine her future, that she will become Paul's legal wife and, more significantly, the narrator of his entire tale, are not shown in the trailer. But this gives Irulan's character more scope since she's not confined to her role as the eldest daughter of House Corrino. Many fans think that Dune Part 2 can truly do something amazing with this important character that people never really believed was feasible prior to Pugh's portrayal of the character. The upcoming film could possibly show Irulan's life and agency before she met Paul. Notably, the problem of Irulan appearing out of the blue at the end of the book was addressed in the 2000 Dune miniseries by having her physically arrive on Arrakis for the iconic banquet scene, a location she did not appear in the book, but possibly should have. But it appears that Dune Part 2 is aiming for a more sophisticated and intricate take on the character. The trailer suggests that Irulan has evolved into a type of investigative journalist, chronicling the events of the movie because so little is known about what she was doing on Kaitane before she met Paul. Irulan is described as an intellectual rebel throughout the first trilogy of the Dune series, not conforming to what people, especially her father, wanted her to be. The real problem is that we hardly ever get to see her actually conducting the kind of research and reporting that she would have had to perform in order to later produce such a substantial body of work in previous adaptations. Sure, Irulan marries Paul for political reasons, and sure, she later falls head over heels for him, but there is Irulan, the scholar and researcher, before that, and potentially after that. Her snippet in the trailer alludes to the idea that Irulan is ready to rule the cosmos and essentially rewrite its history with her recorder in her hand. And this is an incredibly exciting prospect for the character. Dune Part 2 will hit theaters later this year. Only time will tell what happens with Princess Irulan's role, but fans are looking forwards to Florence Pugh's take on the character. What do you think? Is she the right choice for this complicated part? Let us know in the comments section down below.
Love you as long as I breathe.
This prophecy is how the